This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is the Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And today is the first day of the 2019-2020 NBA season. We are super excited to be back. I think this is my fourth season doing this in a row, so I'm pretty excited.
Already?
Yeah, it's been four.
Oh my God.
I mean,
Is it?
there was a five. It might be five
I'll
for
look
me
it up.
because it was 2015, I think, was my first year, but I think that's 4 seasons. If I'm
When
doing
did
my
LaMarcus
math
Aldridge
correct.
get his
That's what
contract?
I'm looking at.
But that's different for you guys because I didn't start then.
Yeah,
And you guys didn't do it continuous.
It was the Tyloo.
I started it was the 73 season.
Oh, okay.
That was my first topic that
The
I did.
first segment was no. Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I know my podcast.
I'm thinking the first one we did was the Tyloo getting fired.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying me.
Sean is our
No,
continuous host of...
not Tyloo getting fired. David Black getting fired.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tyloo ended
Sean
up
is the
being...
continuous host of the
Yeah,
Fast
I
Break
mean,
Podcast.
I restarted it. I took what you guys were doing and it was okay, and now I made it a million times better. We went from 100 subs to 16,000 subs, and that's why.
What
That's
Dave,
entirely
what
on your
Dave
credit.
wanted
It
to
is.
do. Dave's like, hey, we should do an NBA podcast. Cool, Dave, I'll do it with you. Did it a couple weeks, and we're done.
I can't help the fact that at that point in time, I was not ready to do a podcast consistently. That's not on me. I'm not taking blame for that.
Anyways, I think it was the 2015-2016 NBA
LaMarcus
season.
Aldridge was March of 20.
No one cares about
No.
that dumb podcast. I'm being selfish, damn it.
July
It was the 2015-2016
2015.
season, so it was 4 seasons ago. So this is my
Yes.
4th straight season of doing this podcast. We're super excited. We're going to start off with Bradley Beal, some kind of lingering off-season news before we get into the actual regular season stuff. But some off-season news, Bradley Beal signing a contract extension, a 2-year maximum contract extension. We'll talk about that and how it will affect his future with the Wizards. What is it going to look like? With John Wall, when is he going to be traded? If he is going to be traded, is he going to be a Wizard for life? We'll talk about all those implications. Then we will talk about stuff that will affect this season for sure. Zion Williamson going to be out 6 to 8 weeks with a knee injury. We'll talk about all the details there and talk about what it's going to do and mean for the Pelican season. And then finally, we had 5 massive contract extensions given out to rookies from the 2016 draft. Jaylen Brown, Buddy Hield, Domantas Sabonis, DeJounte Murray, and then Pascal Siakam. We'll talk about all those, rank them, which one's most important, which one was the worst, all that good stuff, all in this podcast. But before we jump into the Bradley Beal talk, just check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. Patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. I think I forgot the slash.
Yeah.
Check that out. You can help support us. You can help continue us into our 5th season, maybe in 2020, 2021. It's going to be super fun. So definitely check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast if you want to help us out. But let's jump into the Bradley Beal talk. This was done on October 17th, 2019. Bradley Beal agreed to a 2-year maximum contract extension with the Wizards. The extension is worth more than the maximum of $72 million, begins with the 2021-2022 season, and includes a player option for the 2022-2023 season. So this year he will continue to make $27 million. Next year he will also make $28.7, and then his extension kicks in 2021, 2022, and he'll start making $34.5 million, and then in 2022, 2023 he has a player option for $37.2 million. But the most probably intriguing part of this is that he's going to be ineligible to be traded this season due to the markup, I guess, of his contract. It pretty much has to do with, since he's making so much more in his extension, he cannot be traded this year. So very interesting, details that are coming out all about this extension. Going into this season, we kind of thought that he was going to be, trade candidate number 1.
He was the hot topic for the entire summer.
And now that's completely taken off the board. So let's jump into at least that first part and let's get that out of the way because he can't be traded this year. So how does that affect the NBA? Because he was going to be a guy that maybe he is that third and final piece to a championship team. Maybe at the trade deadline, he's that guy that can just push a team completely over the edge. You're adding a great two-way player. You're adding an all-star in Bradley Beal. How is it going to affect the NBA that Bradley Beal can't be traded in 2019-2020?
I think it's going to raise the value of a lot of guys who are, right in that tier below Bradley Beal. Or some people want to say on the same tier, but people, if the Pelicans have a rough year and there's a great offer for Drew Holiday, I think that would be interesting. I think there's a lot of those guys who are just, quarter notch down from Bradley Beal. The teams would be very interested into adding a piece who is, like you said, savvy two-way guard.
See, I thought the same thing, at least Pelican-wise. I don't think they're getting rid of Drew just because he's locked up already. They have Zion on that stuff.
But yeah.
The guy that I immediately thought to was J.J. Redick. Yes, he can't play defense, but he can provide that three-point shot for you.
And
he's
J.J. has to go to the playoffs.
Pretty much half. And
that's the rule.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking about, was that he's got to make the playoffs, so they're going to do a mid-season deadline deal that's going to push him over. And plus, he's making like $13 million, which is like half of what Beal's making. So I think it would just be, funny that, it could definitely affect those type of guys like Drew Holiday. Ricky, I know you were on the big Bradley Beal must be traded train right now, all this crap, and then we told you that he couldn't be traded, and you're like, oh, crap.
After looking at it, and I know this isn't the side of how it affects the NBA, because to me, this whole deal, how it affects the NBA does not intrigue me. Like, it's not the interesting part of this discussion. The most interesting part of this discussion for me is we've always had talks about how, well, you got to move Bradley Beal because nobody wants John Wall's contract. This is basically the Wizards saying, you know what, fuck it, we're going to double down. It works for Bradley Beal because when he comes out of I think it was if he opts out and becomes a free agent in 2022, then he can get the most money out of that free agent class. But also, even if he stays, this now lines up John Wall and Bradley Beal's contracts to come off the books at the same time. So it's kind of like the Wizards saying, hey, you know what? Maybe we weren't going to trade him at all this season anyways. We were just going to run the team out there like we have it. And we weren't going to get an offer for John Wall because who wants that contract? So let's just give Beal the extension. It works for him, and it doubled down for us to where if Beal leaves at the end, we only have John Wall for maybe a year if Beal doesn't take the player op. We have John Wall for a year, and then that's where the rebuild truly takes its turn.
And to just jump on that, by declining the option in the summer of 2022, Beal will be eligible for free agency with 10 years of NBA service time, allowing him to either sign a record-setting 5-year, $266 million contract with Washington or a 4-year, $198 deal with another team. So just to add the numbers to that, because it would be crazy having
disgusting.
him sign
like, I literally got full body
$266 million
goosebumps when you said that number. I was like, what?
But
that's not even
that's over $250 million. But insane.
But here's the thing: I just want to put a feather in the hat for that.
Yeah.
Part of the discussion, we were talking about this on Saturday when we did the Superfans podcast. What is the range for? Remind me again. What's the range for an NBA player in their prime? Because I know the beginning of it. I don't know what you would count the end of it.
Debating. I've always been. I think the whole idea is that it's 26 to 31.
Yep.
Okay.
But we were saying that it's probably starting sooner than that because I don't know when that started, but I've pretty much always heard that that's when the prime of your life is that 26 to 31 number.
Yikes.
But you look at all of these. Yeah, you're almost out of it. I think that it's got to be changing though because you look at some of these players like Luka Doncic coming in and being phenomenal immediately at 19. You look at Zion Williamson; he could, if he was healthy, he could probably dominate the league as well. Jason Tatum's first year as a rookie as well. Joel Embiid, I don't think he's currently in his prime as well. Nikola
Giannis
Jokic,
just won MVP, and he's 24.
Yeah, he was the catalyst of that. Giannis was just won MVP at 24. He's pretty much in his prime as well. And yes, these are guys that are freak of natures, but I think we're seeing more freaks of nature come about now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And one of the biggest contributing factors to that is the way that people are being medically conditioned for the sport at an earlier age.
How they just train in general and diet now.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's such a thing as dieting. There's such a thing as not going in at halftime and smoking a cigar. Like, you're not drinking beer, like, in between games.
I can't smoke 10 packs a day before I play basketball?
You know what? You may, but you may have some trouble with that conditioning. I mean, that's the biggest thing is players take such, like, it's a multitude times better care of their bodies than they did in the 90s, 80s, 70s. Like, all of those players were great, but athletically, they don't even come close, with the exception of a couple, to where modern stars are. And I think that's the biggest thing is players are so much more athletically ready at a younger age than they've ever been before. So I do agree that primes are starting earlier and earlier. I still question, like, the end, Ricky, where you're kind of hitting that, like, is 31 the end of the prime?
Because when he comes out on the deal, he'll be 29.
Oh, so he's perfect.
Like,
Who wouldn't give him $260 million?
that's
Well, the
I'm
only team that
debating.
would have
Like,
to
The
debate
Wizards.
that is the Wizards.
They would have to.
like if you're thinking, well, it kind of makes me think two things. One,
Yeah.
when he comes out,
Yep.
if Sean's like Sean said, around 31,
Yep.
that means what, 2 years, and then it's like, okay, he's starting to get out of his prime. I know that people are going to bring out, well, look at like a guy like LeBron, where
Yeah.
he's still how old he is right now, and he just got a major injury that took him out most of last season, which we've never seen that before.
If they were competing,
from
he would have
LeBron.
hustled back.
Exactly. But the other thing is with the contract,
Yeah.
is this kind of Bradley Beal? Are we going to look back on this and say, man, Bradley Beal wasted his prime by signing that extension with the Wizards, man?
That's a question.
Is that the storyline that's going to be like when Bradley Beal's career is done and over with? It's like, man, he should have never signed that extension. He wasted his prime.
Well, with that, I mean, does wasting your prime mean you're not winning a title?
Yeah, well, you're not making the playoffs either. Like, I
You
don't know
think
how
John Wall, Bradley Beal can't make it back to the playoffs in the East?
John Wall will come back and get injured.
What's
just
to
that-
say that?
Like,
Dr.
it's just
Ricky.
his history.
Dr. Ricky, you're right.
It's his history.
Why question
like,
Ricky MD?
How many times has John Wall been injured? And I know that like that's a very harsh answer to say. If both of them are out there healthy,
You're talking about the
this
guy
is a
who,
playoff
during our
team.
fantasy draft, was defending Chris Paul.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
am. Because
So,
guess what?
I
Chris
mean,
Paul
you
still
can't-
goes back to the playoffs.
You can't ask that.
Steph Curry gets hurt every
He's the
freaking
one,
year.
he's the one arguing with
No, but
you.
I'm just saying you can't bring up the history
Yeah.
determines that, because Dave will come back and say that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
History
I-
doesn't matter with these players. So I mean, if we expect that John Wall's got to come back healthy, we have to assume that all of his nagging injuries that kept him out for 41 games in 2017, 2018, the major injury that kept him out for 2018, 2019, and now this season as well, the injury that kept him out in his rookie year and his sophomore year as well. Like, or I think the sophomore year was, I think the shortened year.
Yeah, the
it was
shortened season.
2012. He also was held out. Only played 49 games. So I mean, like he's been missing. I think like five. He's missed under 70 games in like 5 of his career seasons.
Yeah.
And then obviously not even counting this year. So having him come back at 30 off a major injury is definitely going to be something of concern. I don't have to disagree with you there. Maybe he doesn't get injured again, but it's going to be difficult for him to stay fully healthy. I think.
To me, I question it, and it's like, of course, if both of them are out there healthy, we've seen them make the playoffs. We've seen them in a playoff series. It's just, if John Wall is the one that's injured and he's not out there consistently, I don't have the faith in this Wizards brass to put a good enough team around Bradley Beal to be a playoff team,
Well,
a
3 years
consistent
is
playoff
3
team.
years is your window. You think John Wall will not be healthy in the next 3 years?
I mean, to me, I wouldn't be surprised if he's healthy for a whole season, but I'm not putting my money on it. Like, if you asked me to go to
I'm
Vegas,
not saying he's going to play 82
and
games.
bet
I'm
the
saying,
house on it.
Will you think in the next 3 years this team will not have a healthy John Wall there enough to make the playoffs?
If you
Because
ask,
I feel like there is almost I would put down money today, say there's 100% chance that John Wall and I don't even want to say John Wall and Bradley Beal, but the Wizards would be able to make the playoffs in the next 3 years. I'd be like, yeah, there's a chance.
one time out of those seasons, yeah, sure, one time. But to me, I feel like in the next 3 years, John Wall will have another injury.
Sleeping
It's
on his own boy Rui Hachimura from carrying the Wizards.
I mean, Rui's got he's got to grow.
You got Rui, you got
like
talent.
I
Rui's
love
20.
Rui. I love Rui, but he's not a finished product.
Here's what I'll say is you said that you're not sure if you can trust the Wizards brass to put a team around them. They did make the move to get rid of Ernie Grunfeld, so he is no longer calling the shots. They did have the failure of trying to sway Masai Ujiri away from the Raptors to have them be, I think, their basketball their president of basketball operations. Same with trying to sway Tim Connolly away from the Denver Nuggets to become their president of basketball operations as well. Currently running the show now is Tommy Shepard, who worked for the Wizards for 16 years, along with Grunfeld. So they were hand in hand. So it wasn't like he was, away from the Ernie Grunfeld idea, but maybe getting a new voice in there will be able to change some minds. And maybe this also isn't a finished deal where maybe Tommy Shepard is still just going along and maybe he's just going to finish out this year. We already know this year is pretty much just a throwaway year anyways for the Wizards. We know that outside of the Beal thing, there isn't really anything super pressing about this team. Now you lock down Beal. You already have John Wall down. Maybe you
re-signed Thomas Bryant.
You re-signed Thomas Bryant as well. now maybe after this year, if you do want to go after another play of maybe Tim Connolly or Masai Ujiri or another name out there to run your ship, you then give them a team that has John Wall locked down. You give them a team that has Bradley Beal locked down, Thomas Bryant locked down. You just drafted Rui Hachimura. You still have Troy Brown Jr. as well. You still have your first-round pick as well. So maybe you give them that load of assets that are currently on your team and that first-round draft pick as well, and you bring in a new name as well. I don't know if I could totally write this team off, right now as not being a playoff team, because Bradley Beal, I think, now becomes your number one. And it used to be John Wall. And I think John Wall as a 2, taking probably a load management situation where he's not going to play a ton.
Pray to God he shoots less threes.
Huh?
Praying to God he shoots less threes out there.
Yeah.
He had an awful shot selection.
But even then, I mean, like, you look at the 3 years that he was healthy, or the 3 years before last year, he was shooting around 34%, which is fine.
That was right around league average at the time.
And as a second option, I think that could be something that can work out. We already know that they're 2 alphas, but they've been able to coexist. And we know that Bradley Beal wants to die in a Wizard uniform. He said that as well. I think that the Wizards aren't in a bad spot right now, and I think it's just massively intriguing to wonder why he did make this deal. And maybe it's just a reason that he does want to stay with the Wizards for a very long time. And this is going to set him up to be a very wealthy man and make $266 million once he's out of this contract. And that would be absolutely awesome for Bradley Beal. I just wonder, again, what his motivation was, and I don't think we will ever actually know what it is, and maybe it is strictly money. Maybe he realizes that this whole NBA thing, it's not really determined on if you win a finals or not, because yes, that's what everyone wants, right? But does it matter in the end? Because you're getting your bag. You're going to be retiring with over $300 million in contract earnings. That is
plus
a damn
plus your endorsements, shoe deals,
that is a
merch.
Damn successful career, if you ask me. I don't give a shit if you don't win a finals or not. And maybe Bradley Beal really likes Washington. Maybe he likes having the ball, which he's going to have for now probably the next 7 years or whatever. He is going to be a guy that I think is going to be in a place that maybe they make the playoffs, maybe he can compete, maybe he thinks that if he's out there on the floor, he's going to give his team a significant advantage. I think it's an intriguing move. I don't know exactly why it was made. Maybe he does have faith in the Wizards brass to make deals to put them in a contending situation. But I just find it intriguing because I really don't know why he did take this deal and why he did extend it right now.
For Bradley Beal, I'm going to put my mind. I know you say we don't know because we don't know Bradley Beal, but I'm going to put myself in the mind of Bradley Beal.
He would ask you to take yourself out of his mind. I wouldn't be shocked if it was like you said, hey, I want to die in a Wizards uniform. Like that is, I am a Wizard through and through. And also on the side of it, oh, by the way, if I do this, I am going to get my cheddar. When I do, if I opt out, I can still stay with the Wizards and get a butt ton. Like that Brinks truck that Jalen Ramsey wanted in the NFL, well, Bradley Beal will get that at the end of this contract. Here's the question that popped into my mind, though. And I know he can't get traded this year, but just the question of, does Bradley Beal end this contract in a Wizards jersey? Like Dave brought up, and we'll get into it later with Domantas Sabonis. You mentioned before we were even recording the podcast something about where does this make his extension make him more favorable in the trade market? Does this also make Bradley Beal where it's like, hey, after this year, draft night, hey, you can trade for Bradley Beal, and you got him locked down during his prime.
And you have the option to give him a shit ton of money going forward.
Exactly.
I want to say that would be interesting because earlier when you mentioned the wasting his prime in Washington, I was like, there's no guarantee he stays in Washington. Like that is the day that we're at in the NBA where players, if they want to be somewhere else, they can get somewhere else.
So you think this was a move then to possibly secure that? Obviously, the $72 million for the next the 2 years after this contract runs out, and then possibly put himself in that situation to get the $266 million.
Yeah,
do you think it's a strictly financial move?
I think that was the end goal from this move. Yeah, I honestly do. It
helps the Wizards out too because now they don't have to worry about him walking at the end of the current contract and getting nothing for him.
Yeah, but then he's still going to be valuable after this year because he still has that 1 year left. Yeah, so you could but I'm just saying, that him walking away for nothing still was 2 years away. So I don't right now was the time to sign the extension because you're not going to be able to sign it next year. But I just wonder, at least with Beal, because this team's not going to be a championship contender by the end of this extension they could be in the playoffs for sure, but I don't see a way that they're going to put themselves into championship contention unless we see the NBA drastically change. Because yes, Kawhi will still be around. We don't know if he's going to be in LA. We know that Paul George is still going to be around. We don't know if he's going to be in LA. We know James Harden's still going to be around. We don't know where. At that point, I think he's going to be locked up probably in Houston still. But like
for like $50 million.
And we and AD's probably still going to be in LA as well as a Laker.
Maybe.
So I mean, we can see
Kevin Durant maybe playing basketball still.
I forgot about him. He'll. I think by that time he'll probably be at the end of his deal. He was a guy too that he is from that DC area.
If he still wants to play,
But he's from that DC area,
yeah.
And that whole talk about when he came up, maybe he's. I'm just saying like it's. I find it odd because I thought if you wanted to be moved, now is your time to be moved because you are going to be under control for less at $27 million, which is a prime place to move you.
Yeah,
that's going to be a perfect spot for the Wizards to move you. Yep. If you move you with 2 years left in your deal, that's going to increase their trade value and their wantingness to trade you because that way you're putting them in a situation where, hey, you don't have guys that are this cheap, that are this special, and another year of control.
It mirrors the Paul George situation.
Yes.
Does it not? I mean, they should be able to get a package in the same vein had he not gone for this extension.
And that's why I find it just odd because, it doesn't rule out that he cannot be moved.
Correct.
But why now? Why right before the end of the deadline? Because we were talking about this. We already had a topic about this 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Why now? And then also, if it is a move to then get yourself moved later on, you're still putting yourself in a situation to get that money for sure, but then you're also putting that team in a handicap spot as well. So now if you're like, hey, fuck it, I don't care if I'm going to put the Wizards in a handicap spot, taking $266 million because I want to be here.
Absolutely.
That doesn't matter. If they want to give me that money, then I'll take that money from them. I just find it weird that now you're putting in the question marks of you can't be traded this year, which is kind of pretty much a waste year. Who are you showing off to? Because the Wizards already give you money to. The only reason why you would, for this year now is just to, personal accolades because you're not going to the playoffs. This team isn't good enough to go to the playoffs. Yep. So now you're probably putting yourself in a situation to, get all pro, all NBA.
Totally capable.
All that stuff.
Yep.
Like, what are you gaining from signing this extension outside of the financial thing? And I think that's all it is. I think all of this is just a financial
It's a win-win,
play.
though. I mean, if best case scenario, John Wall comes back, he's fully healthy at the end of this year, start of next year, you just roll out that team. You'll have a pretty high draft pick. I don't think any of us had Washington going to the playoffs this year, so you'll be in the lottery. You have a chance of a really nice draft pick in this draft class, which looks real good before the season starts. Officially, I'm gonna just toss that out there. There's a lot of interesting, talented players. So they get to add another piece. They've got, like you said, three young pieces between Troy Brown, Rui, and Thomas Bryant building in the ranks. So it's not out of the conversation to say this year is just let Bradley Beal do whatever he wants to do. Let the young kids build up their talent. See if Troy Brown is anything. We saw a lot of him staying on the bench for the majority of last season. So like if that little glimpse of playtime at the end of the year is what's more to come, great. Let's find out. This is the year to find out who those guys are. I would almost pull a page out of the Nets book and be like, let's see what the G League has in stock. Let's see if anybody's leftover stuff now that everybody's made their cuts down to their final rosters. Like, who are some pieces out there who we can give playing time to? Because our year isn't about winning this year. Our year is about finding the core to put around Bradley Beal, John Wall, and Thomas Bryant.
I got a trade. Not this year. Right. Future trade. Let's say, here's how the timeline works.
You're going to like that, Sean.
They go Wizards this year. They're just
I want to point this out to you and to the people listening.
It's a roadmap. I'm going to take you on this journey.
If this is bad, like if this is nonsensical, we are ending the segment.
I don't think it's nonsensical. I think there's sense to this.
I'm pointing it out.
Okay. So this year we all know.
I'm not getting a good look from Dave.
Well, I'm looking at the team. It depends what he says. Because there's a 100% chance this could happen.
Bradley Beal this year plays out with the Wizards. They get a high draft pick. Take whoever they want.
For sure.
Next year, it's a complete John Wall's back healthy. Let's see what we got. And depending how it goes, I am going to lean on the side of I don't think it's going to go well. I wouldn't be surprised if John Wall gets injured again. Mm-hmm. If it goes badly, if I'm the Wizards, I look in that, and this is where the extension would start. All right, let me go to trade Bradley Beal. there's a team in the West that, and I know the landscape may change a little bit in 2 years. Kawhi may not be with the Clippers no more. We don't know what the Laker team is going to look like in 2 years or how, like, who's going to move where. But I look at the Nuggets, and they're a team that right now, the thing we talk about is they've got guys who are good. They got Jokic, who's their star. They got Jamal Murray, who's really good. They've got a ton of depth. But whenever we talk about them as a playoff, it's like the big thing we talk about is as a playoff team.
As one playoff.
As a playoff.
They don't have
Like a playoff,
experience.
baby.
They don't have the experience. I wouldn't be surprised if this would be the 2021 season. We see a trade where Bradley Beal gets sent to the Nuggets. The Nuggets would give up Gary Harris and Will Barton if Will Barton opts into that last year, because both of those guys would be free agents. Wizards could cut them at the end of the year and not even worry about them. And then the Nuggets would just give the Wizards draft pick. So the Wizards would get Gary Harris and Will Barton, who they can see if they like them. If not, Beal is off the books completely.
Yeah,
and draft picks. And then the Nuggets could get a guy who could be like, Jokic is a star, but like Bradley Beal would shake up that team and could probably was like, wow, we look at the Nuggets differently.
The thing with that, and I think that throws a wrench into it, it's so far away from that even being a possibility. And you talk about the Nuggets team not having experience, but by at that point, they'll have last year's playoffs, this year's playoffs, next year's playoffs, and then I think that would be 3 years of playoff experience. Right now, Bradley Beal has 4 years. So it's not like it's going to be drastically different. And it's not that they're inexperienced, just that it's a very young team. Jokic, I think, is under 25 years old. Murray's under 23 years old. Gary Harris, I think, is 26 years old, maybe. There's a lot of young players in this team. The only old players is Paul Millsap. And I think that what you're looking at is Millsap's contract's going to be up. That's going to free up $30 million from them. Torrey Craig's contract's going to be up. They didn't reach a deal with Malik Beasley, so he's likely going to be a guy that moves.
Yep.
So then you're looking at pretty much that $30 million going to Jamal Murray next year. And that way they'll have Murray for 29.2, Gary Harris, Jeremy Grant if he opts into that player option, which I think is going to be likely for 9.3. But then they're banking on Michael Porter Jr. taking that next step next year when Michael Porter leaves and possibly Jeremy Grant leaves. And at that point, you then question, if Michael Porter fits into that situation, would you rather have the ability to have this absolute freak of a player in Michael Porter Jr., who's 6'11", that, yes, he has his own injury issues, just like Bradley Beal had injury issues at the start of his career. But would you rather then put your faith in the scouting department that has gotten you guys like Malik Beasley, Gary Harris, Will Barton, Torrey Craig before, and just keep those young guard rotation like Jamal Murray and Gary Harris, and then you have these two freaks in Nikola Jokic and Michael Porter Jr., and you put all of your assets into that? We don't know where this team's going to be, this Nugget team's going to be at that point, and I think that's why you really can't say that that's going to be a deal that is feasible right now, because right now I think the only time that you can even possibly look at deals being made are in the actual season that it's happening, because you know where these teams are going to be at what peak. Because what if one of these players get injured? What if Bradley Beal gets injured? That's why I think there's too many ifs about all of this.
And
two years out,
and this is where I love standing on the ledge. I'm going to say the biggest thing to it, that, like, if you ask me, am I hanging my hat on Michael Porter Jr. and Nikola Jokic? Right now, I'm going to say no.
What do you mean?
The thing that I look at with this team...
Hold on, no, stop. What do you mean?
The current, like...
Well, no, you said you wouldn't hang your hat on Nikola Jokic.
I'm not expecting... The team that's currently constructed with the Nuggets in 2 years, I don't think they're developing into a championship team to where I think they're going to need, and I'm going to pull out a word...
Why is that?
That Bradley Beal... I'm going to tell you. Okay, you fucking listen.
He's storytelling.
It's bad.
I take you on the journey with me. Bradley Beal, John Wall, they've both said it. The Wizards are going to need an alpha. They're going to need a guy because Jamal Murray, I look at him as a knockdown shooter. If Bradley Beal comes in, Bradley Beal can be your ball handler. He can get the ball to Jokic. Jokic can handle the ball too, but he's not going to be your point guard out there. Bradley Beal can be the ball dominant guy. Get the ball to your shooter and Murray. Get the ball to Jokic. Get the ball to Michael Porter and be the guy this team, the superstar that this team could revolve around. that's a trade that I could see in 2 years. Wizards and Nuggets locking up.
Jokic is already a superstar. 2, that Nugget offense doesn't need a ball handler.
It's
because
predicated around having Nikola Jokic.
Everybody has the ability to pass and move the ball around, and the whole idea is that it's in screens and in constant movement. Would Bradley Beal fit into that offense? 100%. I mean, he's a guy that can shoot. He's a guy that can move the ball. He's a guy that's very athletic, so he can fit into that offense. But he would have to fit into the offense and not be a guy that can be a main ball handler. And I think they're even looking at Jamal Murray might be a guy that can develop into that. That's why they paid him a max of 5 years, 170, and he's been a guy first year 2.1 assists, 3.4 assists, 4.8 assists, and that's a part of the system as well. Is to when you are increasing your minutes from going from 21 to 31 to 32 and increasing your possessions, that you are going to pass the ball more, and that the whole system is about getting people open. You're going to just increase your assist numbers naturally, but I just don't think that we're close enough to that season to fully understand where this team is. And I think calling Nikola Jokic not a superstar is extremely wrong. I mean, he's a top 10 player right now in the NBA. That guy can be a 1. Just look at how dominant he was in the playoffs last year. Where that team struggled last year in the playoffs was the fact that they didn't have the other guys step up. And maybe you see in those next 2 seasons that Jamal Murray, who's right now only 22 years old, can further his game in the playoffs. That Gary Harris, once he's fully healthy, can further his game and help you out. And Michael Porter Jr., who's going to add that next aspect, he seems to be a guy that is an alpha in some ways. If you need a guy to take a shot, he is not afraid of that moment. We saw that when he was injured in college and came right back and took 19 shots when he was hurt. So I don't think we can say that Bradley Beal is going to be moved. I don't think we can say that Bradley Beal is going to be a Wizard for the rest of his life. I don't say that we can't say that he won't be a Wizard for the rest of his life. This extension put a wrench in the whole Bradley Beal is going to be moved at some point, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how everything plays out because, again, that is a roadmap. That is something that could happen, but what if LeBron gets injured and that takes down the Lakers, and then you only have to worry about the Clippers? Well, those are 2 teams with great depth, and yes, you have Kawhi and Paul George, who are very great players on their own, but you don't have a player that can guard Nikola Jokic down low. So that is a playoff matchup that the Nuggets can win, especially having another year of playoff experience underneath their belt. So a ton of things can happen. That's just one thing that LeBron gets injured.
Out, it's kind of rough.
Comes down to next year.
Forecasting that far out is rough. I mean, if you look back, today is actually a great day for it because somebody on the subreddit for NBA dropped a looking back at 5 years from now posts. The 5 years from now posts are hilarious because the people who got downvoted to oblivion being like Derrick Rose is going to be coming off the bench for teams, like all these ridiculous, like these are the top 5 players in their position, and he's like bench, and like people just roast him. He's minus whatever. And you look at today, it's like, well, he's 100% right. Nobody knew how nobody answered with any assurance of like how is it going to happen. But like shit like this happens. 5 years from now, the gamescape is totally different. So I think trying to guess 2+ years out is even still pretty difficult.
Well, and it still comes down to like what you said, your optimism. If John Wall comes back,
they're a playoff team,
and like he doesn't get hurt, then why would the Wizards trade Bradley Beal? It depends on what happens next year.
On top of Rui Hachimura, on top of Thomas Bryant, on top of one of the best backcourts in the NBA. Like there's no excuse for that team not to be a playoff team.
And the thing, too, is you have 2 prospects already on this team that have the upside to become, have skill sets that are very intriguing. I won't say that they have the possibility of being elite, but Rui Hachimura has a skill set that is intriguing. And if he is able to develop, especially with a year that he's going to get a ton of usage, or should at least, that could help his development. Same with Troy Brown Jr. If he gets time and minutes, that could help his development. And we could possibly see them have an elite wing if they are able to hit those marks. And if not, you still have the ability to draft someone again this year that could turn into that. And that way you have 3 elite players. Because let's not act like John Wall isn't an elite player. Yeah. I mean, he's been averaging
a monster, 20 and 10.
20 and 10 since he was 19.
It's ridiculous.
So I think it'd be. I think that it's too far out, like we were saying.
Final note: you guys just massively disrespecting Bol. Like, not even a single mention during the Nuggets trade talks and who's going to carry them through the future. But it's Bol.
Here's, and I know you're half
we
joking.
saw him in person.
I'm 110% joking.
We saw him in person.
I got to see him in person, and there's nothing more impressive than someone who is that tall and that lanky.
The thing that's concerning with him is you hear all these like stories come out about Michael Porter Jr. And there's a story today in the Denver Post, I believe, by let me get the author's name, Mike Singer, that Michael Porter Jr. was like super annoyed over his role in the final Nuggets preseason game, and that he texted Mike Malone to figure out things, and now they're in a great spot.
Yeah.
And he details all of this stuff, and he has to earn playing time, and that comes with it. And there's stuff about how good he looks, but there's nothing about Bol coming out.
He was medically redshirted, basically.
Yeah, but
for this whole year, all he's doing is strength and conditioning. It's similar to Harry Giles.
He's still in the building, Yeah. And we still saw stuff come out about Harry Giles and all that stuff. So it's a little concerning to me.
I'm not concerned at all.
Yeah, shocker.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's going to do it for this segment. Let us know what you think this means for Bradley Beal and the Wizards. I think that to final point this whole thing.
It's a win for Bradley Beal, no matter what. If the Wizards come back healthy with John Wall, Bradley Beal, top picks, great deal. They can move forward as a playoff team and see what their top end truly is. If not, you got options.
Yeah, it's a win for Bradley Beal, and they could definitely build into a playoff team with Beal, Wall, and whoever is on this team, without a doubt. But it is going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because he could be a Wizard for the next 4 years, and then come 2022, 2023, there is a big free agent on the market. Ricky, final thoughts?
No, for me, it's a win-win for Bradley Beal. Like you said, gets paid or gets to win with the Wizards. I am still on the Bradley Beal gets traded before this contract is over, and let's wait until after next season for that to happen.
Dave, I think you pretty much already gave your final thoughts.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Where does this put the Wizards? Where does this put Bradley Beal? And what do you think this will have effect-wise on the NBA? Let us know down in the comments below.